The air inside the palace at Thebes is thick with the scent of cedar oil and an older, more metallic smell. The smell of blood. A scream tears through the royal chambers, a sound not of pain, but of something far worse, of recognition. It is the sound a soul makes when it finally understands the full shape of its own damnation. A man stumbles from the queen's bedroom, his hands covering his face, but they cannot stop the twin streams of dark, thick liquid that pour from between his fingers, running down his arms, staining the fine linen of his tunic. He is not weeping. He is leaking the last of his sight onto the polished marble floor. His name is Oedipus, he is the king, and he has just gouged out his own eyes with the golden brooches he ripped from the dress of his dead wife who was also his mother. He stands there trembling, a grotesque monument to a truth so hideous it cannot be looked upon. He has spent his entire life running from a prophecy, a dark whisper from a god that said he would kill his father and sleep with his mother. He ran with the full force of his intelligence, his courage, his will. He ran so hard and so fast that he crashed headlong into the very fate he sought to escape, and now the race is over. The truth, which he hunted like a lion, has turned and devoured him. He did not want to see it. He could not bear to see the faces of his children, who are also his siblings. He could not bear to see the city he saved, which is also the city he has polluted, and so he has made for himself a new world, a world of eternal, screaming darkness. But why does this ancient horror still grip us, 2,500 years later? Why does the story of a mythical Greek king resonate in our world of algorithms and gene sequencing, a world that has, we believe, conquered fate? It is because the story of Oedipus is not about a prophecy. It is not about the cruel whims of distant gods on Mount Olympus. It is about a question that lies coiled at the very center of the human experience, a question we spend our entire lives trying not to ask. What if the greatest monster we are searching for is ourselves? What if the hidden, corrupting secret at the heart of our lives, our families, our societies, is our own unwitting complicity? Oedipus is not a monster because he did evil things. He is a tragic figure because he was a good man who, in the sincere and relentless pursuit of truth, discovered that his entire existence was built upon a foundation of unthinkable horror. He is us. He is the part of us that fears that if we dig deep enough into our own past, into our own motivations, we will not find a hero but a source of shame. He is the fear that our best intentions are secretly paving a road to hell. And his story forces us to confront the most terrifying possibility of all, that self-knowledge is not a gentle dawn, but a blinding, annihilating light. To understand how a man could arrive at such a precipice, we must first breathe the air of his city. Thebes, in the time before the revelation, is a city dying, not from war or famine, but from a sickness of the soul that has manifested in the body of the state. A plague has fallen. The crops wither in the fields, black and brittle under a bronze sky. Livestock drop dead in their pastures, their bodies bloating in the sun. The women of the city cry out in labor but give birth only to stillborn children. The air, which should smell of baked earth and olive groves, is heavy with the cloying sweetness of decay and the bitter smoke of funeral pyres that burn day and night. The sound of the city is a constant, low hum of grief, a chorus of weeping mothers and desperate prayers to gods who seem to have gone deaf. The stone streets, once bustling with merchants and children, are now traversed by furtive figures, their faces wrapped in cloth, hurrying past the unburied dead. To taste the food in Thebes is to taste ash and fear. To touch a neighbor is to risk death. The very fabric of society, the trust between people, is unraveling. Thebes is a city holding its breath, waiting for a final, suffocating end. Into this despair steps one man who seems immune to it. King Oedipus. He is not a king by birthright but by merit. He is the man who saved them once before. Years earlier, Thebes was tormented by the Sphinx, a creature with the body of a lion, the wings of an eagle, and the head of a woman. She perched on a rock outside the city and posed a riddle to all who tried to pass. What goes on 4 feet in the morning, 2 feet at noon, and 3 feet in the evening? Those who could not answer, she devoured. Thebes was slowly being strangled. Then came Oedipus, a stranger from the city of Corinth, a man with sharp eyes and a mind like a finely honed blade. He faced the creature and gave the answer: man. Defeated, the Sphinx threw herself from the rock and perished. Thebes was saved. In their gratitude, the people offered him the throne and the hand of their widowed queen, Jocasta. Oedipus became their savior, their protector, the embodiment of human reason triumphing over monstrous chaos. He is a man of action, a man who believes that any problem, no matter how complex, can be solved if one applies enough intellect, enough will. He sees the plague not as a curse from the gods, but as a problem to be solved, a riddle to be answered. He is confident. He is decisive. He is the man who looks darkness in the face and does not flinch. And that is his tragedy. But this man, this paragon of certainty, was born from a moment of absolute terror. To understand Oedipus, we must go back not to his birth, but to the prophecy that preceded it. His father, Laius, was the king of Thebes. His mother, Jocasta, the queen. They wanted a child, as all kings and queens do, an heir to carry on their name. But when they consulted the oracle at Delphi, the voice of the god Apollo, the message they received was not a blessing, but a curse of unimaginable cruelty. The oracle declared that if Laius had a son, that son was destined to kill him. Imagine the cold dread that filled that royal chamber. It is one thing to be told your child will be a disappointment or weak or even die young. It is another to be told your child will be your murderer. The very act of creation was now poisoned. The love they had for a child not yet conceived was curdled into fear. What could they do? They were a king and queen. They were used to commanding the world. But how do you command fate? How do you issue a decree against the word of a god? They made a choice. A terrible, pragmatic choice. When Jocasta gave birth to a baby boy, they did not hold him, they did not name him. They took him, and in a desperate, brutal attempt to cheat the prophecy, they pierced his ankles with a pin, binding them together, and gave the infant to a shepherd with a simple, chilling order: leave him on the slopes of Mount Cithaeron to die of exposure. Let the wild beasts have him. Let nature erase this cursed child from the world. The shepherd, a simple man, took the baby. He walked for hours up into the rocky, windswept hillsides. The baby, his tiny feet swollen and bleeding, was quiet. The shepherd looked down at the innocent face. He was supposed to follow the king's command. It was his duty, but he could not do it. He could not leave this child to be torn apart by wolves. In an act of pity that would seal the fate of a kingdom, he disobeyed. He saw another shepherd, a man from the distant city of Corinth, and gave him the baby. Take him, he said. The Corinthian shepherd took the child back to his own king and queen, who were childless. They saw the baby's swollen feet, and in a moment of bitter irony, they named him Oedipus, which in Greek means swollen foot. They raised him as their own son, as the Prince of Corinth. He grew up in sunlight and privilege, with no knowledge of the dark prophecy that clung to him like a shroud. He was taught philosophy, politics, the art of war. He was intelligent, strong, and beloved. But there was always a shadow, a question he could not name. He did not look quite like his parents. There were whispers. One evening at a banquet, a nobleman, drunk on wine, hurled an insult at him. "You are not your father's son," he yelled across the hall. The word struck Oedipus like a physical blow. The hall fell silent. His parents rushed to reassure him, dismissing the man as a drunken fool, but the seed of doubt had been planted. It was a splinter in his mind, and it festered. Who was he really? The question became an obsession. He could no longer live with the uncertainty. He needed the truth. And so, like his real father before him, he made the fateful journey to the oracle at Delphi. He entered the sacred temple, the air thick with incense and the weight of 1,000 unanswered questions. He asked the priestess, the voice of the god, "Who are my parents?" The answer he received was not an answer at all, but a new prophecy, a personal curse that mirrored the one given to his father. The horror of it was absolute. It was a vision of a life so defiled, so fundamentally unnatural that it was barely human. Oedipus stumbled out of the temple, his mind reeling. He believed the king and queen of Corinth were his parents. To return home now would be to walk willingly into a nightmare. He would be a parricide. He would be a monster. He made a decision, the same decision anyone with a shred of decency would make. He would run. He would never go back to Corinth. He would put as much distance as possible between himself and the people he loved to protect them from the monstrous fate that was apparently coiled inside him. He turned his back on the city he called home and began to walk, a man exiled by a future that had not yet happened. He was a refugee from his own destiny. He walked for days, his mind a storm of grief and fear. He was heading northeast aimlessly, anywhere that was not Corinth. He came to a place where 3 roads met, a dusty, unremarkable fork in the path. As he approached, a chariot came rattling down the road towards him. It was carrying an old man, a man with an air of authority, accompanied by a handful of servants. The driver, arrogant and imperious, shouted at Oedipus to get out of the way. Oedipus, lost in his own misery and filled with a prince's pride, refused to move. An argument broke out. One of the servants struck him. The old man in the chariot raised his staff and brought it down hard on Oedipus's head. Something inside Oedipus snapped. It was the rage of a man who has lost everything, a man who has been condemned by the universe for no reason he can understand. It was the frustration, the fear, the grief of the past few days, all exploding in a single moment of blind, violent fury. He struck back. He was young and strong. The fight was short and brutal. When the dust settled, the old man and all of his servants lay dead on the road, all but one who had fled in terror. Oedipus, breathing heavily, stood over the bodies. He felt a flicker of remorse, but mostly he felt nothing. It was a roadside brawl, a stupid, meaningless act of violence. He did not know the old man's name. He did not care. He stripped the bodies of their valuables and continued on his way, leaving the carnage behind him. He had just killed a stranger who was the king of Thebes, a stranger who was his father Laius. The first half of the prophecy was fulfilled. And Oedipus, in his ignorance, felt a strange sense of relief. He had survived, he was free. He journeyed on, and eventually he came to the city of Thebes, a city living in terror of the Sphinx. And there, with the blood of his father still drying on his hands, he answered the riddle, defeated the monster, and was hailed as a hero. He was given the throne. He was given the queen. He married Jocasta, a woman old enough to be his mother. Which of course she was, he had her. They had children, 4 of them, 2 sons, 2 daughters. For years they lived in a state of blissful, catastrophic ignorance. He was a good king, a just ruler, a loving husband and father. He had built a new life, a good life, on the foundations of an unspeakable crime. The prophecy was forgotten. He had outrun fate, he was safe. And then the plague came. The struggle begins not with a sword, but with a question. Oedipus stands before his suffering people, and his heart aches for them. He is their king, their father. Their pain is his pain. He has already sent his brother-in-law, Creon, to the oracle at Delphi to ask the god what must be done to lift the curse. Creon returns with a message from Apollo, clear and terrible. The plague is a divine punishment. There is a pollution, a stain on the city of Thebes. A murder has gone unpunished. The former king Laius was killed years ago, and his murderer still lives among them. To save Thebes, the killer must be found and either executed or exiled. For Oedipus, this is not a threat but a task, a problem to be solved. His mind, the same mind that cracked the Sphinx's riddle, springs into action. He feels a surge of purpose. He will be their savior once again. He makes a solemn, public vow. I will find this killer, he proclaims to the gathered crowd. I will bring this hidden thing to light. Whether he is one man or many, I will hunt him down, and I curse him. I curse him to live out his life in misery. The irony is so thick it is almost suffocating. The audience, who knows the ancient story, can only watch in horror as Oedipus, with the best of intentions, pronounces his own doom. He is the detective, the prosecutor, and the criminal all wrapped in one. He is launching an investigation into himself. His first step is to summon the one man in Thebes who might know the truth, Tiresias, the blind prophet. An old, frail man led by a young boy enters the court. Tiresias has no physical eyes, but it is said he can see the past and the future. He is the repository of the city's secret knowledge. Oedipus greets him with reverence, begging him to share what he knows. You are our only hope, Oedipus pleads. But Tiresias refuses. He stands there, his sightless eyes fixed on some point beyond the throne, and a deep sadness emanates from him. Let me go home, he says, his voice a dry whisper. It is better that you do not know. Wisdom is a terrible thing when it brings no profit to the wise. Oedipus is stunned. Then his confusion turns to suspicion, and his suspicion to anger. This is treason. The city is dying, and this old man is withholding the cure. What are you saying? He demands, his voice rising. You know and you will not speak, you would betray us all. The prophet remains silent. Oedipus's mind, always quick to find patterns, to solve riddles, leaps to a conclusion, a dark, paranoid conclusion. I see it now, he snarls. You were part of the plot, you helped plan the murder. If you had eyes, I would say you committed the act yourself. This accusation finally breaks the old prophet's resolve. His sadness turns to a cold, righteous anger. You dare to accuse me? Tiresias cries, his voice suddenly filled with a terrible strength. Then listen to the curse you have pronounced. The pollution you are looking for is you, the murderer of Laius is you. You are living in shameful union with the one you love most. The words hang in the air like poison. The court is silent. Oedipus stares, disbelieving, then he laughs, a short, bitter, incredulous laugh. It is absurd, it is impossible, this is clearly a conspiracy. Creon, his own brother-in-law, must have put Tiresias up to this. Creon wants the throne. It is a pathetic, transparent power grab. You are a blind fool, Oedipus spits. You live in a world of endless night, you have no power. The truth has no power if you are the only one who knows it. I am the one who saved this city. I, Oedipus, the man of reason, solved the riddle of the Sphinx with my intellect, not with some dark magic from the birds, and you dare to challenge me. The confrontation is a clash of two worlds. The world of Oedipus, a world of visible evidence of logic of human agency, and the world of Tiresias, a world of unseen forces of divine knowledge of inescapable fate. Oedipus, the man of light, is utterly blind. Tiresias, the man of darkness, sees everything with perfect, agonizing clarity. I will say it again, Tiresias says, his voice now calm, filled with a chilling certainty. The man you are seeking is here. He is thought to be a foreigner, but he will be revealed to be a native of Thebes. He will be blind, who now has sight. He will be a beggar, who now is rich. He will make his way to a foreign land, tapping a stick before him. He will be revealed to be the brother and the father of his own children, the son and the husband of his own mother. He will be his father's murderer and supplanter. Go now, ponder that. Tiresias turns and is led away, leaving Oedipus trembling with rage and a tiny, cold seed of fear. The prophet's words are a riddle much like the Sphinx's, a riddle about himself, and though he dismisses it as the ravings of a traitor, the words have found a crack in the armor of his certainty. The paranoia takes root. Oedipus summons Creon and accuses him publicly of treason. Creon, a calm and logical man, is horrified. He tries to reason with Oedipus to appeal to their long friendship. Why would I want the throne? Creon asks. I have all the power of a king now, but none of the responsibility. I have your trust. I live in the palace. Only a fool would trade that for the fear and anxiety that comes with wearing the crown. I am not a traitor. You have no evidence. The citizens, represented by the chorus, beg Oedipus to be reasonable, to trust his friend. But Oedipus is beyond reason now. He is a man in the grip of a terrible, escalating fear. The world as he knows it is beginning to feel unstable, the ground shifting beneath his feet. The only way to restore order, he believes, is to eliminate the threat. He wants Creon dead. It is at this moment that Jocasta, the queen, enters. She is a regal woman, pragmatic and skeptical. She has seen the vanity of men and the supposed will of the gods, and she puts little faith in either. She chides both men for their public squabbling while the city suffers. When she learns the cause of the dispute, Tiresias's prophecy, she lets out a weary sigh. O Oedipus, my husband, listen to me, she says, her voice a comforting balm. Do not pay any attention to prophets and oracles, I can prove it to you. An oracle once came to Laius from Apollo himself, saying that he was doomed to be killed by his own son. But what happened? Laius was killed by foreign robbers at a place where three roads meet. And as for their son, 3 days after he was born, Laius pinned his ankles together and had him thrown out on a deserted mountainside. So you see, Apollo's prophecy never came true. The baby died and Laius was killed by strangers. She says these words to comfort him. She means to dismiss the power of prophecy, to restore her husband's faith in the rational, predictable world, but her words have the opposite effect. One detail, one tiny, specific phrase, snags in Oedipus's mind. It is a detail that he has not thought about for years, a detail from a dusty, violent memory. Wait, he says, his voice suddenly quiet, the anger draining away to be replaced by a new, more terrifying emotion. Where did you say this happened? A place where three roads meet. Yes, Jocasta says, a flicker of unease in her eyes. It was in a land called Phocis. The road from Delphi splits there, one way to Daulis, the other to Thebes. Oedipus feels a wave of dizziness. The world seems to tilt on its axis. How long ago did this happen? He asks, his voice a whisper. Just before you arrived and were proclaimed king, she answers. The pieces are beginning to fall into place, but it is not a beautiful mosaic. It is a monstrous, hideous collage. He asks her to describe Laius. She tells him the former king was tall, with silver just starting to touch his hair. He looked, she says, a little like you. The seed of fear planted by Tiresias begins to sprout, sending icy roots deep into Oedipus's soul. He feels a cold sweat on his brow. Jocasta, he says, his voice trembling, I think I have just called down a dreadful curse upon myself. He tells her everything. He tells her about the drunken insult in Corinth, the journey to Delphi, the terrible prophecy he received, and he tells her about the fight at the Crossroads. He describes the old man in the chariot, the servants, the rage, the killing. The details match perfectly. But there is still one sliver of hope. Jocasta said Laius was killed by a group of robbers, plural. The one servant who survived the attack reported this. Oedipus was alone. If the servant sticks to his story, then Oedipus cannot be the murderer. The entire prophecy, the entire nightmare falls apart. Send for that servant, Oedipus commands, his voice tight with desperation. I must speak to him. While they wait, Jocasta tries one last time to pull him back from the abyss. She can see where this is leading. She can feel the truth closing in like a wolf pack. Even if the shepherd changes his story, she says, her voice strained, it cannot prove the rest of the prophecy. It cannot prove you are Laius's son. The baby is dead. I know he is dead. But it is too late. Oedipus is a man who must know. He has to solve the riddle. The pursuit of truth has become a compulsion, an addiction. He must follow the thread to the very end, even if he finds a monster waiting there, even if the monster is him. He is standing on the edge of a cliff, and he cannot stop himself from looking down. The masterpiece of destruction unfolds not with the speed of a thunderclap, but with the slow, agonizing precision of a surgeon's knife, cutting away layers of denial and illusion until the raw, cancerous truth is exposed. A messenger arrives from Corinth. He is an old man, and he brings what he believes is joyous news. The king of Corinth, Polybus, the man Oedipus has called father his entire life, has died of old age. A wave of profound, intoxicating relief washes over Oedipus. He turns to Jocasta, a wild, triumphant look in his eyes. You see, he cries, the oracles of the gods, where are they now? I was destined to kill my father, but he has died peacefully in his bed. The prophecy is worthless, just a puff of wind. Jocasta shares his relief. For a moment, the storm has passed. They are safe. The rational world has reasserted itself, but the messenger is not finished. He sees the queen is still worried about the other half of the prophecy, the part about Oedipus marrying his mother. You don't need to fear that either, my queen, the old man says, eager to please. You have nothing to fear from returning to Corinth. The silence in the room is absolute. The relief drains from Oedipus's face, replaced by a sharp, focused intensity. What did you say? He asks. If he was not my father, then who am I? The messenger, proud of the role he played, tells the story. I am the one who found you, he says. Years ago on the slopes of Mount Cithaeron, another shepherd, a servant of King Laius, gave you to me. Your ankles were pinned together. I was the one who freed you, and I gave you to the king and queen of Corinth. Jocasta makes a small, strangled sound. She understands. She understands everything in that one blinding, horrifying instant. The pieces have all clicked into place. The prophecy, the baby on the mountain, the pierced ankles, the name Oedipus, swollen foot, her new husband, the hero, her old husband, dead at a crossroads. The son she thought was dead, it is all one story, a perfect, hideous circle. She looks at her husband, who is also her son, and her face is a mask of agony. He is still on the hunt, still demanding answers, not yet seeing the full picture she now holds in her mind. No, she whispers, her voice filled with a desperate, pleading terror. In the name of the gods, Oedipus, stop, do not ask any more questions. My suffering is enough. But Oedipus misinterprets her horror. He thinks she is afraid that he will be revealed to be of low birth, a slave's son, and that she, a queen, will be shamed. Let it all be revealed, he says, his pride wounded. I must know my origins. You are a doomed man, Jocasta says, her voice flat and dead. That is the last thing I will ever call you. She turns, her face ashen, and flees into the palace. A terrible, final silence follows her. Oedipus is alone with the messenger and with the chorus, who now watch him with a mixture of pity and dread. He is so close to the truth, he can feel it, he just needs the final piece. And at that moment the last witness arrives. The shepherd, the servant of Laius who was ordered to leave the baby on the mountain. The sole survivor of the attack at the crossroads. He is a very old man now, bent with age and fear. He knows why he has been summoned. He has carried this terrible secret his entire life. The messenger from Corinth recognizes him immediately. This is the man, he says. He is the one who gave me the baby. The old shepherd trembles, he denies it. He says he doesn't know what the messenger is talking about. He begs to be allowed to leave, but Oedipus will not allow it. The truth is within his grasp. He orders his guards to seize the old man, to twist his arms behind his back. Speak, Oedipus commands, his voice now cold and hard as iron. The old shepherd in agony finally breaks. For the love of the gods, my king, don't ask me any more, he weeps. Did you give this man a child? Oedipus presses. I did, the old man sobs, and I wish I had died that day. Where did the child come from? Was it yours? It was not mine, it was from the house of Laius. A hush falls over the assembly. Oedipus takes a deep breath. The final question, the one that will unlock everything. Was it a slave's child, or was it born of Laius himself? The shepherd lets out a wail of despair. You are on the brink of a terrible discovery. And I am on the brink of hearing it, Oedipus says, his voice steady, but I must hear it. The child, the old shepherd whispers, his eyes squeezed shut, was said to be his own son. Laius's son, your wife the queen, she could tell you best. She gave him to you, Oedipus asks. Yes, my lord. Why, with what purpose? To kill him. His own mother ordered you to kill him. Yes, the shepherd cries, she was afraid of a prophecy. What prophecy? That the child would kill his own father. It is done, the final piece of the puzzle slides into place. The riddle is solved, Oedipus stands perfectly still. He does not scream, he does not collapse. A strange, awful clarity descends upon him. He sees the entire arc of his life, from the pins in his ankles to the blood on his hands at the crossroads to the marriage bed he shares with his mother. He sees that every step he took to escape his fate was a step that led him deeper into its coils. His intelligence, his courage, his will to know, these were not his saviors. They were the instruments of his damnation. He raises his head and his eyes are filled with an unbearable light, the light of a truth that scorches the soul. Oh, oh, he whispers, the sound barely audible. Everything is clear now, cursed in my birth, cursed in my marriage, cursed in the blood I have shed. O light, may I never look on you again. He turns and walks with a strange, calm deliberation into the palace. A moment later, a scream is heard from within, not his, a woman's scream. It is followed by a shattering crash, then silence. A palace servant runs out, his face white with terror. He tells the horrified chorus what has happened. Queen Jocasta, unable to live with the truth, had run to her bedroom, locked the door, and hanged herself. Oedipus, finding the door barred, had broken it down with his bare hands. He saw his wife, his mother, hanging from a rope. He let out a terrible cry, cut her down, and laid her on the floor. And then he saw the golden brooches that pinned her dress. He pulled them from the fabric, he raised them high, and he plunged them again and again into his own eyes until the sockets were ruined, bleeding pits. He was shouting, the servant says, that his eyes would no longer see the evil he had done, the evil he had suffered. And then the doors of the palace open one last time. Oedipus stumbles out into the sunlight he can no longer see. His face is a mask of blood. He is a king no more. He is a pariah, a thing of horror, a living monument to the most profound suffering the human mind can conceive. He has solved the final riddle, the riddle of himself. And the answer has destroyed him. In the final reckoning, what is left of Oedipus? The king is gone, the hero is gone, the husband and father are gone, all the roles he played, all the masks he wore have been burned away by the terrible truth. What remains is a blind, broken man, a source of pollution who must be cast out of his own city. He begs Creon, now the reluctant ruler of Thebes, to exile him, to send him back to Mount Cithaeron, the place where he was supposed to die as an infant. It is, he says, the death that was chosen for him by his own father and mother. He asks to see his daughters one last time. Antigone and Ismene, two small children who have no understanding of the catastrophe that has swallowed their family. They are brought to him, weeping. He reaches out with bloody hands not to see them but to feel them. He holds them, and his blind, bleeding face is a contortion of love and agony. My darlings, he whispers, I cannot see you, but I weep for you. I weep for the bitter life you will have to live, the shame you will carry. Who will marry you now? Who will risk bringing the curse of this house into their own? You will wither, childless and unmarried, all because of me. He makes Creon promise to care for them. It is his last act as a father. And then he is led away, tapping his stick into exile and darkness. The city of Thebes is cleansed, the plague will lift, order is restored, but the cost has been the complete annihilation of one man's life. So we are left with the question that Sophocles left his audience with 2.5 millennia ago. What can a human being do in the face of such a fate? The story seems to offer a bleak, deterministic answer: nothing. Oedipus's will was an illusion. His freedom was a cage whose bars he could not see. Every choice he made was simply another turn in a maze designed by the gods, a maze that led inexorably to a single, horrifying exit. This fatalistic reading is powerful, but it may not be the whole story. It is possible to see in Oedipus's fall not just a testament to human powerlessness, but a strange and terrifying kind of victory. Consider this: at any point in his investigation, he could have stopped. Tiresias begged him to stop, Jocasta begged him to stop. The shepherd begged him to stop. He could have chosen comfort over truth. He could have chosen to live out his life in blissful ignorance, a respected king with a loving wife and healthy children. The city might have withered, but his personal world would have remained intact. Almost anyone else would have made that choice. But Oedipus could not. His defining characteristic, the very quality that made him a hero, was his absolute, uncompromising need to know. He is the patron saint of the relentless investigator, the whistleblower, the scientist who follows the data no matter where it leads, the person in therapy who insists on excavating a painful past. He embodies the Socratic ideal that the unexamined life is not worth living. Oedipus puts that ideal to the ultimate test. He examines his life so thoroughly that it becomes unlivable. His final act, the self-blinding, can be seen not just as an act of self-punishment, but as a final, radical assertion of agency. The gods determined his actions, but he would determine his own response. He takes control of his own suffering. He says, in effect, "You, the gods, have shown me a truth I cannot bear to see. So I will choose not to see it. I will not be a passive victim of your cosmic game. I will be the author of my own pain." In that moment of self-mutilation, he reclaims a piece of his own will. He chooses darkness, but it is his darkness. This is the terrible paradox at the heart of the human condition. We are born into a world of constraints we did not choose: our genetics, our families, our historical circumstances, the simple, brutal fact of our own mortality. We are, in a sense, all living out a prophecy. We are all fated to get old, to suffer, and to die. That is the oracle's decree for every one of us. We cannot outrun it. What then can we do? We can do what Oedipus did. We can choose how we meet that fate. We can choose to live in denial, to distract ourselves, to pretend the prophecy does not exist, or we can choose to face it. We can choose to ask the hard questions, to know ourselves, even the parts that are ugly and shameful. To accept responsibility not just for what we intended to do, but for what we have actually done. This path does not lead to happiness. It often leads to pain. It leads to a kind of blindness, a loss of the simple, comforting illusions we once held, but it may also lead to a kind of dignity. The story of Oedipus endures not as a warning about the danger of hubris, but as a testament to the terrifying, magnificent, and ultimately tragic power of human consciousness. We are the only creatures on Earth, as far as we know, who are burdened with the knowledge of our own fate. We know we are going to die. We know our time is short. And like Oedipus, we are faced with a choice: to look away or to look directly into the blinding light of that truth, and to find in that confrontation the meaning of our lives. So we must ask ourselves, if the price of absolute truth about who we are is the destruction of the comfortable life we have built, is it a price we are willing to pay? And what if, in the end, we have no choice but to know?